Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is very simple. I just want to share with you how I made this easy birthday card. It's that simple. So for my card today, I'm using some stamps from Cracker Box and Susie Stamps. I'm using Cupcake with Strawberry and then that Happy Birthday Wishing Sentiment. And I do have a little bit of a technique at the end, I guess, that I will be showing you of how I got that two-line sentiment into one line. But first, I want to go ahead and get started on stamping and coloring my little image. Like I said, I'm using the Cupcake with Strawberry stamp from Cracker Box and Susie Stamps, and I'm stamping that onto some watercolor paper with my Mini Misty and VersaFine Clear ink in Nocturne. I did prep that surface with my embossing bag. That's just going to help the embossing powder not stick anywhere where the ink isn't wet. So all that white space is just going to fall right off of it, hopefully. But once I have that stamped down, I'll add my clear embossing powder on top of that. I want to make sure the image is completely covered with it, and then I will go ahead and heat set. Now I am doing this extra little step. I normally don't heat emboss my stamped images, but I'm going to watercolor this. Anytime I do watercoloring, I like to try and heat emboss my image. That just allows me to be a little bit more messy, a little bit more impatient, and give my watercolor lines to stay in. It just helps me so much when I watercolor because I am not very good at watercoloring. So this just gives me a little bit of a guideline, kind of like in digital coloring where you can't color outside the lines. It's kind of like that, but for watercolor in real life. So I'm using my Arteza brush markers. I haven't used these in a while and I wanted to pull them out and use them to color this image. So I will list the colors right here, and those are the colors I'm using. Very simple. How I use these when I'm doing watercolor is very simple. No techniques involved. All I do is place down the color where I want the color the darkest, where I think it should be the darkest. I don't really have any rules to follow. And then I take my water brush with just clean water in it, and I move the color to where I want it the lightest. Pretty simple, and that's how I color in my watercolor images. Like I said, I'm no watercolor expert. There are some crafters on here that are so much better at watercolor than I am. This is just how I do it in my little simple world. Now I saved this bottom wrapper for last because it's the biggest and it intimidated me. So I am just layering up colors here until I get it as dark as I want it and just moving that color around with my water brush. The water brush I am using is from Arteza, and once I had that done, I went ahead and set that aside to dry. If I am patient enough, I love to let my watercolor images air dry. I think it looks better when I do that. If you're feeling impatient or you really need this in a hurry, just use your heat tool and hit it. Make sure not to remelt your embossing powder though. Now once I had that set aside to dry, I'm going to go ahead and work on my background. For my background, all I'm taking is a piece of white cardstock that is 3 3/4 by 5 inches and adding a little bit of Royal Treatment Catherine Pooler ink to the background with my Amazon blending brush. Then my image was dry. It took no more than a couple minutes to completely dry because I didn't use a whole lot of water. And so it was time to fussy cut it. I am just turning the paper as I fussy cut. That's the one tip I have for fussy cutting, is to turn the paper, not your scissors. It works out so much better and it helps you get into all those tiny tight little grooves. I left a little bit of a border around, as you can see too. That always helps me instead of cutting straight up to the line. Now, it's time to do the sentiment. I am using the Happy Birthday Wishing Sentiment, and it's in 2 lines, but I really wanted it just straight across. So I'm going to do some simple masking. I align the word happy on the left-hand side of that panel, and I'm going to cover up that birthday with tape as I ink up the stamp. Then I remove the tape before I stamp it down, and there I've just got the word happy stamped. Now I want to clean this stamp off really well, make sure there's no ink left behind because I don't want any ink to transfer from the word happy as I stamp the word birthday now. We're going to do the exact same thing, just instead of aligning the word happy, we're going to align the word birthday. Make sure that's nice and lined up with your previously stamped word, and then I'll just cover up the word happy, the word I don't want stamped, with some tape. I'm just using Scotch tape. Use any tape, painter's tape, washi tape, whatever you have, and I'll ink up the word birthday. Then Make sure you pull your tape off before you stamp it down. I've learned the hard way to remember that little lesson. And then stamp down your word. And there you have a 2-line sentiment into one. It's as easy as that. You just do some simple masking with some tape and ink up your stamp. The one thing to remember is just clean off that stamp really, really well in between stamping both words so you don't get any residual ink above that word birthday, because I've had that happen and it can ruin the whole look. So just make sure you clean that stamp really well. Now to finish this card, I'm going to keep it super simple. I added my cupcake with some foam adhesive right in the center of that ink blending. Then I'll mat this panel with a piece of craft cardstock. I went 1/8 of an inch bigger on all sides, so this ended up measuring 3 7/8 by 5 1/8 for the craft cardstock. I used liquid adhesive to glue that together because for adding this onto my A2 top folding card base, I'm going to use foam adhesive and add another layer of dimension. That's just going to give a little bit of shadow behind that mat and add a little bit more interest to this very, very simple card. Now finally, my last step, I want to add just a little bit of shine to this candle. So I'm taking diamond glaze. This is from the Cracker Box and Susie Stamp Shop as well. And I'm adding a little bit to the flame of that candle. I'll let that dry, and then I've got this nice shiny hard layer over that flame of that candle. It just adds a little something extra to this super simple card. But that's it. That's how easy this card was to make. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and a look at how I made this very simple birthday card. Sometimes I just feel like making a card. I don't have any techniques in mind, and today was one of those days. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's a little bit different from what I normally do. That is going to do it for me today. All the supplies I used are going to be listed down in the description box below if you're interested. Thanks for watching today, and happy crafting, everyone.